while celebrating our 23rd wedding anniversary in a dimly lit Italian restaurant. Surrounded by our closest friends and family, I raised my glass to toast the woman I had loved for over 2 decades. Her name was Melissa, blonde, confident, with that kind of rehearsed smile she used when cameras were around or when she wanted something expensive. She looked stunning that night in a burgundy dress that hugged her like a secret. My hand trembled slightly as I lifted the glass of champagne. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. The golden lights glinted off the wine glasses, the laughter echoed off the polished walls, and the band was playing our song. Or at least, what used to be our song. I excused myself to the restroom. That's when everything began to unravel. As I washed my hands, the door creaked open, and a woman in a dark green dress stepped inside. Not a worker. Not anyone I recognized. She glanced around nervously, then leaned in, whispering, "Your wife? She put something in your drink." My heart froze. I saw her take out a packet and stir something in while everyone was distracted. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. She laughed about it. Thought it was funny. But it didn't feel like a joke. I stepped past her and into the hallway like I was floating. The hallway suddenly felt a mile long. My footsteps sounded too loud. My breath was shallow. Back at the table, Melissa was laughing with Ethan, her brother-in-law, or so I thought. She reached for her glass as I sat down. I reached faster. I swapped our glasses. Smooth, invisible. I'd done nothing wrong, but adrenaline made it feel like I had just detonated a grenade. I smiled at her, forcing calm. She clinked her new glass against mine and said, "To forever." That was rich, coming from her. 12 minutes later, as the waiter served dessert, I noticed her blinking more than usual. Her mascara started to smudge. She giggled too loudly at something Ethan said. Then she tried to stand. Her knees buckled. The entire restaurant froze. "Whoa, babe," I said, catching her. "You okay?" She mumbled something incoherent, her mouth slack, her pupils glassy. I helped her sit back down, and people assumed maybe the champagne hit harder than expected. But I knew. She had drugged my drink. But I had given her her own dose of whatever the hell it was. Everyone chuckled awkwardly. Someone made a joke about anniversary shots hitting too fast. But I wasn't laughing. I watched her lean on Ethan's shoulder like it was instinct. That was the moment everything clicked. I had always trusted her too much. Always overlooked the smirks, the strange texts, the late gym nights. But now the mask slipped, and all I saw was a woman who had carefully, quietly grown to despise me. I didn't say anything yet. Not in front of our kids. Not in front of the crowd. But inside me, something snapped. I pulled out my phone under the table and texted Tyler, my private investigator friend who owed me a favor. I need everything. Melissa. Ethan. Phone taps. GPS hidden cams. I want it all. The waitress came by to ask if we wanted the bill. "Oh," I said with a warm smile, "we're just getting started." Melissa slumped beside me, eyelids flickering, murmuring something that sounded like Ethan's name. I patted her hand. "Sweetheart," I said, "don't fall asleep on our big night." She tried to smile. Failed. She didn't know I'd caught her. Not yet. But I was going to make sure this night would be the last time she smiled in my presence without consequence. Because if she thought this was going to be just another dinner, she had no idea what kind of hell she'd just walked into. She stayed quiet most of the ride home, head tilted against the window, still dazed. I played the good husband in front of the kids. I helped her into the car, buckled her seatbelt, and told everyone that she had probably mixed wine with her medication again, which wasn't a lie this time, was it? In the rearview mirror, I saw Ethan texting nonstop. His thumbs danced across the screen like the night couldn't end fast enough. I made a mental note to check his phone records. Tyler replied with a thumbs up. That was all I needed. Back home, I guided Melissa to bed. She collapsed onto the mattress without grace. Her dress wrinkled, her hair tangled, her perfume no longer alluring. I pulled the covers over her. She looked so small now, so harmless. But nothing about her was harmless anymore. The moment the bedroom door clicked shut behind me, I went to the garage where I'd hidden the bugging kit. I had bought it months ago during a paranoid phase. Funny how I thought I was being overly dramatic back then. Turns out, I wasn't paranoid enough. I started with her car, a sleek white Lexus I bought her last Christmas. Under the dashboard, I slid in a tracker. Then I moved to her gym bag. I opened it, expecting yoga gear. What I found was a prepaid phone wrapped in her leggings. Burner. I didn't touch it, didn't turn it on. Just took photos. Evidence. I returned upstairs around 1 a.m. She was asleep, snoring lightly. I stared at her for a long minute. 23 years. And she chose this as her gift to me? The next morning, she was bright-eyed, acting like the night before hadn't happened. What happened to me last night? She asked between sips of black coffee. Felt like I got hit by a truck. You probably drank too fast, I said, my tone neutral. She laughed, shrugged, and leaned in to kiss my cheek. I let her. For now. I spent the next 3 days playing the part of a doting husband while I collected information. Tyler delivered fast. Phone logs. Video footage. Hotel receipts. Ethan and Melissa had been renting a suite once a week, every Thursday, for the last 4 months. Always the same hotel. Always under fake names. She used one of her old college IDs to check in. They even had room service delivered. Champagne, strawberries, body oil. She planned it all, down to the hour. There was footage, too. Them in the hallway. Her laughing with her head thrown back, pressing her chest into him like she hadn't smiled like that at me in years. I watched every second of it. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel every ounce of betrayal. I didn't want to numb it out. I wanted to burn it into memory. The confrontation didn't happen the way I expected. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. That would have been a gift to her. A way for her to play the victim. No. I waited until Sunday. Family brunch at our house. Ethan was there. So was her sister Julia, their teenage kids, my daughter Chloe, our son Ryan. I stood up in the middle of the meal, lifted my glass again, and repeated the same toast from the restaurant. To 23 years, I said, meeting Melissa's gaze. Everyone clapped, raised their glasses. Then I added, and to the man who's been comforting my wife every Thursday afternoon. Ethan, how's that hotel suite treating you? Silence. Forks froze midair. Chloe's face went pale. Julia dropped her coffee cup. Melissa blinked, slow and rehearsed, like she didn't hear me right. Ethan tried to speak first, but I cut him off. I have receipts, Ethan. Video. Logs. You signed for room service with her fake name. By the way, Melissa, I slid the printed photo across the table. Her laughing. Hair tangled. In a towel. That's a nice look on you. Shame you never wore it for me. Melissa's face didn't crumble. No. That would have been human. She just rolled her eyes. Oh, grow up, she said, standing. It's not like we've been in love for years anyway. Everyone stared at her. Don't act surprised. You've been boring since 2015. I stared at her in disbelief. And that gives you the right to drug me? That was supposed to make you chill out and stop being so uptight. God, you take everything so personally. I could have lost it right there. Instead, I pulled out the final envelope. Inside, the divorce papers, asset division, and copies of her messages with Ethan. I had it all. And as the room crumbled around her, as her family turned away in disgust, as Ethan turned ghost white beside her, I walked away. Not because I was weak, but because I was done being her fool. She followed me out to the driveway barefoot, her voice sharp like broken glass. Oh, so now you're the victim, she snapped. You're acting like some hero because you pulled a gotcha moment in front of the family. Real mature. Liam. I kept walking. The night air was cool, but my chest burned. She grabbed my arm. You think you're going to walk away from me after all these years? After everything I gave up for you? I turned and looked her dead in the eyes. What exactly did you give up, Melissa? Loyalty? Respect? A steady Thursday schedule with my brother-in-law? Her expression didn't flinch. No regret. No shame. Just venom. I should have left you years ago, she hissed. You were a safe bet. A provider. But you're cold. And boring. And watching you sit at that stupid desk every night made me feel like I was dying inside. You mean the desk that bought you that Lexus? I said. The vacations? The house? Chloe's private school? She smirked. You don't get it. You never did. You're the kind of man women settle for. Not crave. That hit deeper than I expected. Maybe because it wasn't the first time I'd thought it myself. She kept talking, her voice rising. I stayed because it was easier. But don't you dare act like you were some kind of prize. You were a job. And I needed a break from the 9 to 5. I stood there in silence, my fist clenched at my sides. Not because I was going to hit her, no. Because I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to my car. Opened the trunk. Took out a small suitcase. I'd packed it that morning. Just in case. You're leaving? She asked, arms crossed now like she had the upper hand. No, I said. You are. She laughed. Actually laughed. This is my house. I pulled out the deed from my bag, the one I transferred months ago when I started noticing the red flags. Not anymore. Her laugh faded. I saw this coming, I said. And I've had time to prepare. You were busy with Ethan while I was getting my ducks in a row. So let me make this simple. You're going to pack a bag, leave tonight, and you're going to sign the divorce papers. You're going to waive alimony because I've got the footage. The texts. The drugs. Everything. Her face dropped for the first time. I will burn your entire reputation to the ground if you push me. You'll lose your job, your friends, your image. I'll make you infamous in circles you thought worshipped you. So don't test me, Melissa. Not today. She stared at me like she was looking at someone she'd never met. You're not who I married, she whispered. No, I said. That man would have begged you to stay. I'm the one who watched him die the moment you chose Ethan. I turned my back on her again. Walked inside. I didn't care where she went. Didn't care who she called. That part of me, the part that clung to her, that hoped she'd come to her senses, that part was buried now. Upstairs, Chloe was sitting on the edge of the bed, her knees pulled to her chest. You okay, Dad? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I will be. She looked like she wanted to ask more. I didn't have the strength to say it out loud. That her mother had betrayed all of us. So I sat beside her, put my arm around her shoulders, and we just sat there in silence. Downstairs, the front door slammed. And with that, 23 years of lies walked out of my life. The morning after felt unreal. I woke up to silence. No Melissa brewing coffee, no perfume lingering in the hallway, no clatter of high heels across the marble floor. The house felt hollow, not empty, just clean, as if her absence had disinfected the place. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a mug of untouched coffee, thinking about all the mornings I'd shared with her, blind to everything. Thinking about the nights I spent working late, believing she appreciated the sacrifices, while she was probably whispering sweet nothings to Ethan in some overpriced hotel room I paid for. Chloe came down, still in her pajamas. She didn't say much, just poured herself cereal and sat across from me. Is Mom coming back? She asked quietly. I took a breath. Not to this house. She looked at her bowl and nodded. I heard what she said. Last night. I didn't ask what part. I knew it didn't matter. Any part of it was poison. She's been different for a long time, Chloe added. I just didn't want it to be real. Neither did I said. The doorbell rang before I could say more. I opened it to find Ethan. Of course. No smile. No excuses. No fake charm this time. He looked like he hadn't slept, and I could see a faint bruise on his cheek. Probably from Julia. You said your piece in front of everyone. Can we talk now? He asked. You got 5 seconds. Liam, man, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. 4. She told me you two were practically roommates. That you didn't even sleep in the same bed anymore. She said she felt trapped. 3. He raised his hands. Look, I was stupid, okay? But I didn't force anything. She. 2. I'm sorry. I stared at him, my jaw clenched. 1. He backed off. Okay. I'm leaving. Good. Because if you ever step near my daughter or my home again, you won't be walking away next time. He didn't even argue. Just turned and left like a stray dog. I watched him go and realized I didn't feel rage anymore. Just disgust. Deep, permanent disgust. By noon, I had already spoken with my lawyer. Melissa had been served the papers. She hadn't responded yet, but she would. I made sure the evidence was attached to the file. She could either sign quietly or be dragged through the courts. Her choice. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Julia. Can I come over? She asked. She showed up an hour later, alone. No makeup, eyes red. She looked more human than I'd ever seen her. I didn't know, she said the second I opened the door. I swear to you, Liam, I didn't know. I let her in. She sat at the same table Melissa used to sit at while pretending to scroll Pinterest, probably texting Ethan. I kicked him out, she said. And I told the kids everything. They deserve to know what kind of man he really is. I nodded. I'm sorry you had to find out like that. No, she said. I'm sorry I never saw what you were going through. You deserved better. We all did. We sat in silence again, a theme that seemed to be growing in my life, silence and clarity. That evening, I went through old photo albums, family trips, birthdays, anniversaries, and I saw the same thing in every photo, me, smiling wide. Melissa, perfect pose. Her eyes never really looking at me. I tossed them into a box and taped it shut. The past belonged in a box now. It was time to build something new, without her lies, her fake tears, her shallow smirks. And I would. Starting tomorrow. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took the day off. No emails, no meetings, no spreadsheets. I dropped Chloe off at school, and instead of turning toward the office, I kept driving. Just me, the hum of the engine, and a silence that no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like freedom. I ended up at the lake an hour out of town. The one Melissa always said was too boring for her taste. I parked the car, stepped out, and just stood there. The wind was sharp. The air smelled like pine and cold water. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could actually breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was from Tyler. She's panicking. Her lawyer called mine. She's trying to negotiate. Of course she was. I didn't reply. I walked down to the edge of the lake and skipped a rock across the surface. It made 5 ripples before disappearing. Melissa probably thought I'd give in. That I'd be afraid of the scandal, afraid for Chloe, afraid for the story getting out. But what she never understood was I wasn't scared of losing her. I was scared of becoming the man who stayed even after knowing everything. Not anymore. When I got home, there was a package on the front step. No return address. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single envelope, handwritten, "For when you're ready." I recognized the handwriting. Melissa. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The letter was 6 pages long. Rambling. Defensive. She blamed stress. Blamed boredom. Blamed me. Then she said Ethan wasn't the first. That there had been others. People I'd never even met. She said she felt trapped in perfection, like I had built her a golden cage. She actually wrote that golden cage. She said she still loved me, but not in the same way. Said she hoped I'd understand someday. No apology. No remorse. I burned it. Later that night, I sat Chloe down. I had to tell her more. Not the ugly details, not the drugs or hotel rooms, but the truth. Your mom and I are getting divorced, I said gently. She didn't cry. She just nodded. I figured. I want you to know this isn't your fault. None of it is. I know, she whispered. Then after a moment, can I stay with you? That nearly shattered me. You'll always have a home with me, I said. Always. The next week was filled with paperwork, lawyers, and quiet evenings. Julia stopped by a few times. We talked, not about the past, not about Ethan, but about books, music, stupid things that didn't hurt. She brought over soup when Chloe got sick. Stayed late once, after Chloe went to bed, just talking with me on the couch until we both fell asleep sitting up. It wasn't romantic. It was real. A kind of peace I forgot could exist. Melissa tried once more, showed up uninvited, all tears and shaky breath, asking if we could reset. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked her in the eye and said, "You ended this, Melissa. I'm just the one burying it." She left without a word. I watched her car drive off, tail lights fading into the night. And I knew, finally, it was over. Weeks passed. The house began to feel different. Warmer. Calmer. Without Melissa's constant tension in the air, everything seemed to breathe again, even the walls. I started sleeping through the night. Chloe did too. Her laughter slowly returned, hesitant at first, but real. She even invited a friend over for the weekend. The silence was no longer heavy, it was peaceful. I redecorated the bedroom, not out of spite, but necessity. I stripped the walls of her framed photos, the scented candles she never lit, the silk pillows she picked for looks, not comfort. I replaced them with things that felt like me and Chloe. Family photos. Warm lights. A new blanket she helped me choose. She said it made the room less fake. I knew exactly what she meant. One night, I found myself sitting on the porch with a glass of bourbon, just watching the stars. I hadn't done that since our early years of marriage, before Melissa made me feel like it was a waste of time. She always needed something: attention, praise, status, money, validation, but never peace. Peace bored her. That's the part one kept missing until it screamed at me in her absence. That same night, Julia texted me. "You up?" I replied, "Yeah," on the porch. She showed up 10 minutes later, wearing a hoodie and jeans. No makeup, no facade. We didn't talk much at first. Just sat. The breeze was soft, and the moon hung low like it had secrets of its own. After a while, she said, "You know, I think Ethan was always jealous of you." I laughed once, sharp. He had a strange way of showing it. He wanted your life. The respect. The consistency. He just didn't want to earn it. We sat a little longer before I asked, "And you? You okay?" "I will be," she said. Then added, "I hated her, you know, for how she treated you. Even before the affair. You just never saw it. Or maybe you did, and you just didn't want to believe it. I turned to her. I wanted to believe in her more than she deserved. She didn't deserve half of you. I looked away. Well, she got all of me. For 23 years. And now? Julia asked. Now? I said. I rebuilt. She smiled, small but genuine. A few days later, the divorce was finalized. No court drama. No drawn-out fight. She signed everything. Probably thought it made her look noble. Truth was, she didn't want the truth dragged into public. Her reputation mattered more than revenge. I kept the house, full custody of Chloe, and most of our assets. She kept her Lexus, her lies, and a condo I had no interest in. She tried one last jab through her lawyer, a note she asked to pass along. It read, "Maybe one day you'll realize you weren't enough for me. And maybe that's okay." I laughed when I read it. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. That woman was gone. Not just from my house. From my life. From my heart. She could scream into her empty condo walls all she wanted. I wasn't listening anymore. The day after the papers were signed, I took Chloe out for dinner. Just the two of us. We went to that same Italian restaurant. The place where it all began. She was hesitant at first, until I said, "Let's reclaim it." We sat at a different table. No family, no toasts, no poison. Just pizza, laughter, and stories. Real ones. She asked me about my college days, and I told her things I'd never shared before. We laughed until dessert. And as we left, the hostess stopped me and said, "You've got a great daughter." "I know," I said. "She's the reason I made it out of hell." We got home, and Chloe hugged me at the door. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said. "You didn't fall apart." I kissed the top of her head. "That's because you were here to keep me standing." And just like that, life began again. Not perfectly, but honestly. One afternoon, weeks after the dust had finally settled, I received an invitation. It came in a thick white envelope with embossed lettering and a gold seal. At first glance, I thought it was a joke, maybe from an old colleague or a clueless relative. But when I opened it, the grin on my face vanished. Ethan and Melissa were getting engaged. They had the audacity to send me an invitation. Not just that, Melissa's handwritten note inside read, "No hard feelings. Thought you'd want closure. We'd love for you and Chloe to come." There wasn't a word in the English language vile enough for what I felt in that moment. I didn't show the invite to Chloe. She didn't need to carry any more of Melissa's weight than she already did. I tossed the envelope in the trash, calmly, then took out the entire bag and burned it in the backyard fire pit. That night, I told Julia about it. We were having dinner on her patio. Just the two of us, under string lights in a summer sky. "They sent you an invite?" she asked, jaw tightening. I nodded. I guess I'm supposed to applaud their betrayal now. Julia stared into her wine glass. She's not even embarrassed. That's what's terrifying. She never was, I said. Even when she got caught. Even when I showed her the evidence. Her conscience was already sold off with the rest of her soul. Julia laughed bitterly. I used to envy her. Her confidence. Her looks. The way she always walked into a room like she owned it. I thought you two had it all figured out. She did own the room, I said. She just never wanted me standing in it. We ate in silence for a while, until Julia looked at me and said, "You know, they deserve each other." "Yeah," I replied. Like two parasites fighting over the same host. She chuckled, and then something shifted. She looked at me a little longer, her expression softer. "You're not the same man from a few months ago." I raised an eyebrow. "That bad, huh?" "No," she said, smiling. "That free." Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, thinking. Not about Melissa, not anymore. I thought about how close I came to losing myself trying to keep something broken from falling apart. How long I lived in a house full of shadows and convinced myself it was just dim lighting. I opened my laptop and began writing. Not a rant. Not a journal. A letter. To myself. A reminder. She didn't break you. She freed you. I wrote about the moments I ignored. The sighs behind her smiles. The excuses. The Thursday evenings. I wrote about how I traded my self-worth for the illusion of stability. How I mistook survival for love. And then I wrote what mattered. You are not her shame. You are not her regret. You are your own resurrection. The next morning, I printed it and folded it into my wallet. Just in case I ever forgot. The wedding went on, of course. I heard about it from a mutual friend, some overpriced resort, champagne towers, a modern fairy tale theme. I didn't attend, but I sent a gift. A framed photo of Melissa and me from our wedding day, split down the middle. On the back, a handwritten note. Fairy tales end. This one just took longer than most. I never heard back. A few months later, Julia and I were still spending time together. It was slow, real, unforced. Chloe had grown close to her. Sometimes I caught her laughing in ways she hadn't in years. We weren't rushing anything. Neither of us needed saving, just someone who didn't flinch when the past echoed too loud. One night, as we sat watching Chloe paint in the living room, Julia leaned over and whispered, "You're doing good, Liam." I looked around. The quiet peace, the steady warmth, the freedom. "I finally believe it," I said. And I did. The year closed quietly. No chaos. No explosions. No final scene where someone begs for forgiveness or storms off into the night. Just peace. Melissa disappeared from our lives entirely. The last I heard, she moved to Miami with Ethan. Rumors floated back. Infighting, financial problems, a canceled honeymoon, even a restraining order filed by one of his exes. None of it surprised me. I didn't care enough to follow the details. But sometimes I'd catch myself wondering, not about her, but about me. How I'd stayed so long. How I convinced myself that loyalty meant sacrifice. That pain was proof of love. That enduring her silence, her contempt, her cold smiles, was just part of being a man. It wasn't. It was weakness disguised as patience. One evening, Chloe and I sat watching an old movie. Something cheesy and warm, the kind Melissa would have mocked halfway through. Chloe laughed, leaned on my shoulder, and whispered, "You're happier now." I kissed the top of her head. "So are you." She nodded. "Mom doesn't call much. She's not ready to be the mom you deserve." Chloe didn't respond, but she didn't need to. Her silence said everything, not sadness. Acceptance. That's what healing looked like. Later that night, after she went to bed, I stepped outside. The stars were out again. Clear sky. No weight pressing down on my chest. Just air. Just now. Julia texted me. "Still up?" I replied. "Always." She sent back a photo of Chloe and her niece playing in the park earlier that day. A simple moment. A full one. And it hit me. I had stopped waiting for life to return to normal. I had built a new normal. One that didn't revolve around someone else's approval. One where love wasn't begged for, but shown. Where I wasn't walking on glass, but solid ground. This story didn't end with revenge. Or courtroom drama. Or some grand reckoning where she falls to her knees. It ended with something better. Me, whole again. Not because of someone else, but because I finally remembered who I was before I forgot. And if you're reading this, wondering if you're crazy for noticing the distance, the excuses, the lies, you're not. You're just waking up. Don't waste another year trying to glue together shattered trust. You don't need her to fall to pieces for you to rise. Let her rot in the castle she built on your pain. You rebuild. Stronger. Wiser. Free.